Okay. All right, so just real quick. So all we have today is we're going to spend the first half of the class going over the last set of questions. And I was able to mark the text so that everybody knows what questions have already been answered. That's helpful. And then this weekend, we are going to be working on the Can Your Privacy Be Violated If You Don't Know video that we watched, okay? Just as a reminder, and I'm glad that Tanner's picture's up because he was the one that brought this up. So I have it set up in the grade book that it'll take a score for every one of the writings of the ethical dilemma or the ethical decision making. It's going to keep the score for the top 8. So it's going to drop 4 scores automatically. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the idea is if you do more, then it's going to just pick the top ones. So minimum, if you're just trying, you only have to do 8. It'll ignore the zeros. But if you want to get a better grade, if you do more, it's going to take the best ones of each one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, that, again, I mean, I do not want to create a situation where, good hell, how much is he going to ask of us? But at the same time, this gives you, and especially, for example, if your grade's hurting a little bit, this gives you an extra avenue to improve your overall score. Okay. All right. So, if I'm looking correctly, Josh, you're up first.
I'll do number 34.
Number 34.
Corporate social responsibility and greenwashing are the same concept. That's false.
Okay.
CSR is obeying the law and ensuring products or the production of your products avoids damaging the environment, where greenwashing is just tricking your customers into believing.
Okay. Yeah, so the book, so why is this idea of greenwashing such a big deal?
Because you're lying to your customers on how good your products are for the environment itself.
Okay, so we're looking at an audience that has a very specific, we're looking at stakeholders that have a very specific interest, right? Customers who are concerned about the environment, and so we're going to present ourselves as being this, but we do that by hiding certain practices or relabeling those practices in such a way as to make us look more responsible than we are. Okay, it's kind of like sanitation engineer as a term to replace a garbage person, right? And so we're using terminology, for example, what was it that Ben & Jerry's is doing? It's a specific type of animal treatment where it's like close quarters feeding. Basically, they're keeping them in large, pens and things like that. They don't disclose that, but they make themselves look incredibly socially responsible in a lot of other ways. Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. So I just marked, no, that was 34. Got it. Okay. Maybe. There we go. Okay. All right, let's close that then. Oh, it helps if I share the screen. Sorry. I'm missing something here. All right, let's share that. There we go. All right, Porter, you're up.
Okay, so I'm going to do number 4. Which of the following are the duties of the board of directors? And that is managing and executing the strategy of a company, defining a company's ongoing mission, and evaluating the salary and benefits of senior management.
Okay, so excellent answer. So Porter, let me ask you, why is B not one of the duties of the board of directors?
Well, so my thinking was because they're kind of like overall picture and not like day-to-day kind of tasks. So
okay,
you kind of, you want to hire people that can be able to do the day-to-day while the board of directors is overall picture.
Excellent. All right, so who would be responsible for letter B?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. That's why I asked it.
I guess I don't know.
Oh, take a guess. What do you think?
Someone below board of directors, but higher than higher management.
Okay, and who would that be? There's one person. The CEO. Yep, that's the role of the CEO, is supervising middle and senior management and reporting to the board of directors about their actions. Excellent. Okay. Haley.
I'm going to do question number 20.
Question number 20. All right, what you got?
Which of the following are steps in the MITRE stakeholder process? Well, first they have to establish or sustain the trust. So A is correct. Since
Okay.
shareholders can be stakeholders, they have to identify their stakeholders and they have to re-identify them periodically as well. So B is correct. They also gather data and analyze appropriate data. So C is also correct. And then once they have all this information, they present it to the board of directors or whoever's the decision makers, whether it be them or someone else. So all of them are correct.
Okay, I would probably say that according to the text, shareholders is not going to be, miters are concerned with people, I mean, shareholders are stakeholders. But by purchasing shares, they're already identified. The concept of miter is trying to figure out who are we overlooking, who are we affecting by our business practice that we might not realize or that we are overlooking. So I'm going to slightly disagree with you on B, but I completely agree with A, C, and D. So excellent. So why is miter so important? Go for it, Kyle. Oh, sorry. Haley, go for it.
Well, they're the ones that take into consideration any customer concerns there may be.
Okay. And so this is creating a formal situation that is going to collect data from as many places as possible with what intent? What are they trying to do with all of this information that they collect? Okay, the intent is to direct the company, right? To help us to evaluate the quality of our decisions and to compare it against what? Remember, what does the board of directors is concerned with what? Are they concerned with the day-to-day operations of the business? No. They're concerned about kind of the bottom line. They're concerned about the profitability of the company and its alignment with what? This is why we keep saying that a business doesn't make decisions itself. It's made by the people in the business. How does that? We want to make sure that decisions and actions that the company is taking are in line with its values and mission. Okay, so for example, Unilever, that's it, Unilever, that owns Ben & Jerry's, says that it is an environmentally responsible company. Okay? One would think then that the board of directors would look at the specific behavior that we saw described in Ben & Jerry's and say, is it a good thing to use these close quarter feeding situations?
No, they said that it's harmful for the well-being of the animals and it contributes significantly to pollution.
Number two. Okay, we live in Idaho, southeastern Idaho, northern Utah. We have all driven past a dairy farm, right? And it is pretty easy to know when you drive by a dairy farm. Would you agree? Now, if you look at the operations that we're talking about, these are fairly open. These are not considered close quarter feeding pens, right? Because in a close quarter feeding pen, they put you in the pen and you stay there, right? So so on the same size as a dairy farm that we drive by, they're going to have about 2 or 3 times the number of animals in the same space. What is that going to result in? Well, the odor you smell when driving by an Idaho dairy farm would be a much more intense experience if you drive by one of these things. Because they're producing that much more manure that has to be dealt with, right? And all of that in that concentrated area is going to increase the likelihood of pollution. And so that's why we're saying, is that in line with Unilever's belief about how we treat the environment? Probably not. So the entire MITRE process is to make sure that we're involving all of these additional stakeholders, like the people that live on the outskirts of said dairy farm, and how that's impacting their lives. Now, one of you in the reading made a comment about, well, so how do people get to have an opinion or share an opinion on the impact of a business in their neighborhood? I can't remember who posted it, but somebody talked about the government process involved with people being able to make comments on business behaviors. Who wants to take credit for that? Who was the one that talked about the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Oh, that was me.
Okay, so tell us about that.
So I work at an engineering I work at an engineering company, and a lot of my job is actually coordinating with the client to the county so they can get their projects approved. And so every month I go to meetings and I fight for my client to say, yep, we want this new development to come in for X reason. And then the people directly affected by that have a chance to say, yeah, I'm for this, or nope, I'm not for this, or I'm neutral. So it just gives the people, like, for the stuff I do, the people who own properties within 300 feet are directly affected.
Okay. And so this means that just because I own the property doesn't mean I can do just whatever I want on that property. There are laws and regulations, and like Tanner was just saying, I can go in if I'm close to that location and share my opinion. I can, even though somebody bought the property to do X, I can say, here's the reason why I think that's a really bad or dangerous idea. And even though they own the property, I can help to squash or support that decision. Excellent.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Haley. I appreciate that. All right, Caden, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna do number 44. It says,
Number
how are
44.
Ben and Jerry's and Coca-Cola's respective examples of greenwashing? And I said, both companies have basically lied to look good in the eye of the public, where Ben and Jerry stated that they are locally supplied dairy products, but as they got bigger, they had to go with larger non-local suppliers. And Coca-Cola basically says that they listen to their stakeholders and they strengthen the fabric of their communities, but they're taking billions of liters of water from a community that doesn't have that much water in the first place.
Okay, so they moved to Mexico because the production cost was lower, but they located to a location where they're taking an incredible amount of water out of the system in a place where 50% of the people do not have running water in their homes already. Okay, so how could they possibly say that they're benefiting the local economy or local environment if they're doing that?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I don't know if I haven't looked at like their current mission statement. I don't know how old this book is or anything, but I don't know if they changed it or.
I'll probably guess that the answer is no, they haven't, but they would probably say, okay, so we moved to Mexico to this location and we built the plant and we're taking all of this water. So how could they make an argument that they're improving the quality of life in that area?
I guess they could say that they've been creating, like they could create jobs there to like the community. Or
Number one, they're creating jobs in a place that sounds like there aren't a whole lot. Okay, these are consistent relative to the local economy, high-paying jobs. Okay, that's number one. How else might they be improving the quality of life in the local region? If I have a plant that takes up a lot of space, what am I likely going to have to do or pay?
Oh,
I'm going to
taxes.
have to buy the land and I'm going to have to pay local taxes. And so if I have a major employer who comes in and builds a huge plant, all of a sudden that community is receiving taxes that normally was just dry scrubland. So they can be, but the question is the amount of water that they're taking out of the area, are they paying enough to justify what the location is losing? That's not clear from this, and I can't really speculate on that. Okay. All right. Well, Caden, excellent answer. Thank you. Okay, Anthony, you're up.
Yeah,
What you got?
I like number 19. I thought that one was a cool question where it talked about Edsel and his car that he kind of made. I don't know if Edsel was the guy that made it or if that was just the name of the car. But number
It was
19,
the name of the car.
which of
Okay.
the following is a lesson learned from the Edsel story? So I said C, stakeholder perceptions have a large impact on success.
Okay.
And that's so very true. Because, like, in the little paragraph that kind of talks about it, it talks about how Ford wasn't seen as a luxury car, that they kind of just made lower end cars.
Okay.
Everybody saw it as how Ford intended it to be, as a kind of middle high class luxury car for families to drive. But because no one had that same perception, none of the stakeholders had that same perception, they just saw it as another car.
And because of the cost and things like that, it didn't sell because nobody wanted to spend that kind of money on a Ford because Ford didn't have the reputation. And I know that some of you might still feel that way. It's that classic Chevy Ford argument that I see all over the place. Okay, but the specifics of this is they ignored or overlooked how stakeholders felt, how customers felt about the car before they designed it. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Zach,
like that
you are
question.
up. Yeah, it was a cool question.
I'm gonna go with number 46.
Number 46.
Let's see here. It says, "Why is it ethical that Kroger is making its own clothes?" So, just to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm answering this correctly or not. So just correct me if I'm wrong. But
Will.
so I think that it's ethical because, for instance, when I was in Fred Meyer last semester, when I was there in Pocatello, since they had a lot of products, besides just groceries, they had a little bit of everything. It made me stay there instead of like drive all over town looking for different things like clothes or different types of whatever the case would be. And so for me, they kept my business because it was my convenience. It was closer to the school, Fred Meyer was, and it had more of the stuff that I wanted. Even though Walmart sometimes had cheaper things, I felt like I'm already here. I don't have time to drive over there right now. And they have their closed or whatever the case is. And I think it's also ethical because when people, or if they want to be, if they're competing against other stores that also sell clothes, if they lowered their prices a little bit, they would have high competition, which would then have other customers be there buying the clothes, maybe even getting new customers there. And then they're going out and spreading the word saying, "Hey, I found a good deal on whatever this shirt is or whatever here is." And so therefore they're helping their company make money, but they're also helping their community by providing more convenience because it's all in one place and it's kind of cheaper.
Okay. Okay. Now that doesn't quite get into the idea of why is it ethical for Kroger's to do it. So I'm going to see if you want to go for a little bit further. How is it ethical? Or why is it ethical?
I really don't know how to give a more detailed.
Okay, so I'm going to give you another similar example and see if this helps. Costco. Costco's brand is called Kirkland, right?
Right.
And Costco has a food mart, right? It's kind of a quick deli that sells very specific products. One of the products that they sell are hot dogs. And Costco makes one of the best cheap generic hot dogs. Okay, they're known for it, and it's actually a profit leader for Costco. Because they knew that it was so popular, they went and bought a meat production plant to make their own hot dogs. So the Costco hot dogs that you buy are made by Costco. Why would it be ethical for Costco to do that?
Would it be
Why would
because
they do?
so now they have a company, therefore they need employees, so they're helping their community by employing more people?
Okay, that's one benefit. But here's the thing. If Costco says, for example, our hot dog is longer than any other hot dog you can get, it's a bigger hot dog, and it's all beef, and we can guarantee it, why would that be important? Winter.
I guess.
Okay, yes, what were you saying?
I don't know. Well, I've heard also too that like hot dogs, you really don't know what's inside of them. So when you're guaranteeing something, it helps build up their trust with their customers.
Exactly. We're making a commitment that the hot dog you were about to buy is all beef, and we know because we make it ourselves. We're not dependent on somebody else who may or may not keep up their end of the bargain. We're not going to risk it. We're making it ourselves. It's the same idea, for example, if you go to Five Guys. Have you ever noticed when you go up to the, yes, I'm using a lot of food, I apologize. If you go to Five Guys, the fries you are eating today came from, and they will have the name of the farm and the city in Idaho where it came from. Why? Well, but it's not just local here, which is a big deal to us here in Idaho, but why would it be a big deal when you go to the store in Florida to see that same thing? Because Idaho has a reputation for high quality potatoes, right? We're in competition with Maine as the two primary places where you buy potatoes. And so if I can say these came from Blackfoot, Idaho, somebody in Florida doesn't know where Blackfoot, Idaho is. They really don't care. But if I can say these potatoes didn't just come from anywhere, they came from this, it builds, you're going to have a sense of, man, these are going to be good fries. They come from good potatoes. That's the exact same thing about why is Kroger making their own clothes? Because that way they control everything about it. Right? So for example, with Nike, how many of you have heard of stories that Nike sells shoes, but they're being built or manufactured by kids in sweatshops?
I was about to make that connection.
And because Nike's saying, look, we're going to sell the shoe and the shoe's going to be high quality, but we don't control, well, we outsourced the responsibility for this product to this company in Taiwan. And how they do things is up to them. We just want the final product, right? Apple and the Foxconn Corporation, where people were literally killing themselves and committing suicide because of how bad it was to work there. You had to live at the factory. They wouldn't let you leave because if you did, you probably wouldn't come back. So literally they would put them in dorms and lock the doors until it was time for their shift. People were jumping out of the windows to kill themselves because they couldn't take it anymore. So what was the solution? They put bars on the windows. Okay, but that's the point. Apple is this trillion-dollar company. And they were saying, well, it's not our responsibility because this company elsewhere is making that for us. So it's on them if they did something bad. Kroger says, if we're going to sell clothes, we're going to know that they were made responsibly because we're going to make them ourselves. Okay? That wasn't intended necessarily as a sales plug for Kroger. I do not get a kickback for that, but nevertheless, that's why you should go and buy a Costco hot dog after class. Da-dum-bum, chink. All right, next. Zach to answer the last one. Jackson, you're up.
Can I do number 27?
Number 27, that's a great question.
I couldn't.
Yes.
So this one was pretty straightforward to me, because we kind of already went through this in the beginning of this near the beginning of this class with that chart that shows morals, ethics, and laws or whatever.
Yes.
Because I mean, it says laws dictate all ethical responsibilities that a company may owe to key stakeholders, and that's clearly false. Laws only dictate the legal responsibilities that the company owes to any of its stakeholders. Only what they must do in order to be allowed to operate in a given society.
Excellent. Now, in the text, as we've been reading, we start with the legal responsibility, which is the bare minimum. What would I describe as the step above legal responsibility? We've heard that term in the text this semester, in this chapter. It talks about the ethical
minimum.
Okay, so the legal standard is this is the least that the law allows you to get away with. The ethical minimum is this is what the ethical standards say is the least you can do to meet your obligations. So what do we call the best that we can do? The ethical maximum.
That's the ethical maximum.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, Tanner, you're up.
Excuse me. I would like to do number 32.
You can do number 32.
Okay. It is important for executives to interact with the outside environment, stakeholders such as media and government. True.
Okay, why?
Because those outside stakeholders can vastly affect any company. I mean, the media especially, media being, whether it's social media or news media, like any of that can greatly affect. And so if you have a poor executive who can't handle those situations well, it's going to greatly impact your company for the worse.
Okay, so I'm about to give an example. It is very fraught with politics. Just putting it out there, okay? My Pillow. Okay, it's a pillow company, correct? Why is it in the news all of a sudden? It's not because of the quality of the product. It has nothing to do with the quality of the product. Why is My Pillow just getting totally trashed in the media right now? No, it's because the CEO of the company has gotten involved in making arguments about the fairness of the election. And so the reason why this is such a problem is you would normally think this guy's expressing his political opinion, which he is allowed to do, right? However, because people are taking a look at what he's saying and what he's doing, major other corporations like Target, Amazon, Kmart, and other places, Bed Bath & Beyond, are all saying we will no longer sell this product. Not because of the quality of the product, but because of public perception of the company as represented by the CEO. And what makes this interesting is the CEO is not speaking as the CEO of MyPillow. He's not trying to represent the company. He's representing his own political agenda. However, people are associating his opinions with the company, and therefore the company is being hugely negatively affected. And so there's a lot of questions about, should a company be held responsible for the voices and opinions of the people that represent it?
Okay, I have a
Don't have an
question.
answer. Yes.
Trying to put names to faces. The MyPillow guy that we're talking about, the CEO of MyPillow, is that the same guy that's on the commercial?
Yes. Mike Lindell. Kind of looks like if Billy Banks had shaved his beard but kept the mustache. Same guy.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. Let's keep it going. All right. Who's next? Billy, you get to get skipped right now, but we're going to come back to you because you got full credit today. So, Kaysen, you're up.
All right. Has 26 been done?
26 has not been done.
All right. So what is a measure that accounts for an organization's results in terms of its effects on profits, planet, and people? I kind of want to say both A and B, but I think if you want to get more specific, I would go with B.
B is the specific measure. Corporate social responsibility is a much broader concept, but measuring an organization's results specifically on profits, planet, and people is the triple bottom line. What makes the concept of the triple bottom? Has the triple bottom line always been present? This is a relatively new innovation, started in the 70s. Okay, why is this such a big deal?
Well, because I would say because human beings haven't really considered the impact of their actions until recently, because usually like the population of the planet has gotten so much larger. I would feel like our impact on the planet has gotten so much larger.
Okay, and that's the big deal. It used to be the bottom line was a determination of profit versus people. How much money are we making and how well are we taking care of people? The idea of the triple bottom line is we now have to say, what did we do to the planet to get here? Okay, and again, remember how I was telling you a while ago about the movie that I watched about Teflon and DuPont? That DuPont wanted to make a completely slick indestructible pan. And so they created this chemical to coat it. We call it Teflon, but it cannot be digested. It cannot be broken down. And if you get too much of it in your system, it causes serious health effects. And they just dumped that into waste without any tracking. It got into the water systems. And now they assume that they believe that 95% of all living organisms in the world have Teflon present in their system. Congratulations, folks. You are all now stain resistant, if only. Okay, so the idea of saying that we have to consider the impact that we had on the environment as a part of this, excellent job, guys. Okay, let's see. Scott Mansfield, you're up. Scott, if you're talking, you're muted. Well, let's actually see if you're here today. You're not here today. Okay. Well, that explains why you didn't answer. All right, Logan, you're up.
All right, I'm gonna do 43. Why does a corporation prioritize stockholder claims? A company or a corporation prioritizes stakeholder claims by using index values, which ranges stakeholders from most important or highest priority to least important or lowest priority. This is not to go and say that one is acknowledged and one is not. All claims are acknowledged. It is just simply a matter of importance, and that is based on the position of authority and the interest in a company.
Okay, and so this is how they do it, by measuring and indexing them. And like you just said, it's not that we ignore them, it's not that they're not important, but why would it be important to prioritize stakeholders? What's the most common reason why we would have to do it?
Because there's too many problems, so you kind of have to go one at a time.
Okay, every company deals with limited resources. When I say limited resources, what are some examples of limited resources? What are some of the limits that they experience? Just off the top of your head. Not enough people. Not enough time.
Stock.
Not enough stock. Not enough money on hand. Not enough material, right? If every person that came in and complained about a meal got a free meal, I don't know if that's sustainable, right? So I have to make some decisions about how I am going to address. I can't simply just continually give stuff away because I have a finite number of resources. So I have to index who's important, and then how am I going to deal with their complaints. Okay, excellent. All right, Cattell, you're up. 36 has not been done. Right. So what question,
I think almost was similar to his, that mine is how there is a corporation prioritize stakeholder claims, and it has 4 different sections. There's the financial aspect.
Okay.
And it is okay to do.
That's okay, totally.
Okay. And then to clearly identify your want from the stakeholders.
Okay.
3 is the relationship and the dynamics.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm struggling to read my own writing. And 4 would be, can you exist without the stakeholder, or you would replace his stakeholder already. And then I have something else on here too, because they might be identified through another relationship too.
Okay, so sorry, I just lost it. Okay, so Logan identified what they do, which is the indexing, and then what you've done is explain what is the indexing process. What do I use to index? So excellent. Okay, Megan.
Has number 18 been done?
That's a wonderful question. It has not.
Okay, so I would say it's B, because all the other ones are salary and like it pays you, and amenities are extra, and the company does not have to give them to you.
Excellent. Yeah, so A, C, and D are all the same thing, just different terms for the same concept. B, which is the extra perks that come with the job, that is something that's completely and totally up to the university or to the company. Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. All right, Billy, do you want to go for extra credit? I take that as a no. Okay. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. So mine were all pretty much taken, so I'll give a shot at 21.
Number 21. Okay. Which of the following best relates to prioritizing stakeholders?
I would say B. I think this one's kind of a hard one, because when it says prioritizing stakeholders, you have to assume they're talking about how do we keep our company running and what's the best way to do that. Like, there's times where you have to pick the best of the worst, and so I think B represents that the best.
Okay. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, Winter, what would you say?
I would put C I know it mentioned a couple times that customers were like some of the highest priority stakeholders. Would that be C or maybe D? Because corporations need to manage expectations of customers and stakeholders.
Okay. So when we say letter D, corporations need to manage the expectations of customers. What does that mean?
What was that?
Okay, so Andrew just said we need to be careful not to allow our customers to have unrealistic expectations. We should not order something from Amazon and expect it to be delivered by drone within the next 30 minutes, especially in Idaho. Maybe in New York, maybe in San Francisco, where their corporation is, but not someplace like Idaho. Now, why would that be difficult? Why would it be important to say that we need to manage? Why would customers have unrealistic expectations?
Unrealistic advertising.
Number one, unrealistic advertising. How many of you have ever seen a hamburger come from McDonald's that looks like what you see on TV? Ever.
Or the frozen.
Or what?
The frozen food packages that have a picture of frozen food on it.
Yeah. Okay, so false advertising is a serious reason why we need to do that. Can somebody give me another one?
Customers don't necessarily understand how business works, and so they have a too high of expectations, I guess. Like, yeah.
Okay, so we have what is unfortunately called the Karen mindset, right? And I hate that term just because it's not an accurate reflection, because it really stereotypes it to a very specific picture in our head. But this expectation that if I complain, I can manage to get whatever I want. Okay? Anything else? Parker? Nothing? Okay. Anybody ever heard the customer is always right?
Yeah.
That has been drilled into our heads for a very long. I think that the customer is always right is the cause for the rise of the Karen generation. This idea that I can always get what I want, and if I just complain enough, they are always going to give in to what I'm asking for. I can totally see how this idea that the customer is always right would lead to that. And so helping companies to understand how to manage so that customers still feel cared for while I'm still being realistic that here's what I expect or what I can do. Okay? My personal favorite story that I read this in another class that I was teaching. Guy was working at a Macy's store. Now, we used to have a Macy's here in Pocatello a long time ago. Macy's is what kind of store? The clothing store. A person came in and said, I have 4 tires. I am unhappy with them. And the person at the desk took them, gave them a refund, and then the manager took them over to a tire store to get rid of them. What is the danger in having a customer attitude like that?
Wait, did they get the tires from Macy's?
Nope.
Wait, how did they give them for something that was in your purchase?
Because the customer service agent had been told the customer is always right.
I guess that's why all the Macy's are shutting down across the nation, huh?
I think so. But this is a situation, and so some people said this is a fantastic example of customer service. And I have to ask the question, is it? Because how does this violate our concept of business ethics that we've been talking about?
Because I feel like companies put like a certain amount of trust into their customers. But
Okay.
like for them to look at like that kind of changes the dynamic of how we should treat our customers.
Yeah, Because I can't go into a dentist's office and say, you know what, I didn't like this meal, so I want you to change my, take care of this cavity. Kyle, were you going to say something?
I just feel like, to an extent, it's almost unethical to do something like that, like to take the tires, because you're telling everybody that you can do that every time or do something at that with that weight. You know what I mean? And that's again unrealistic. You can't keep that up. You're running out of limited resources.
Okay, excellent. Andrew.
I think that's what expecting your customers not to be unreasonable and back.
Okay, yeah. So when I train my customers to be reasonable, it allows me to be reasonable. Excellent. Sam.
One big part of this that I think a lot of people don't think about is how much risk it adds to the employee when you always have to react a certain way. Like it's especially like working at Walmart or something. Some customers are very aggressive, and that's still to not get into an altercation. But you also, as a business, have to look out for your employees and kind of draw that line between the customer service and just keeping that employee safe.
Excellent. And this actually brings up another reason why it's not ethical is because Macy's sells clothes, they do not sell tires. Taking tires is giving money back to a customer that did not spend any money at Macy's. So the employee is being unethical in terms of protecting the corporation's interest and the corporation's funds. Now, I would expect and hope that a manager was involved in this, but if a manager was involved, I'd be looking at the manager going, what in the hell are you thinking? Now, if they brought back clothes that you don't sell, at least it was clothes, but tires? Really?
I mean, anything that isn't sold at your store, do you have a responsibility to that?
Well, that was the question that was brought up in this. And so I think that's what is relevant to this is how do we take care of customers? And I think that the best thing in terms of and I agree with what you guys were saying, that I think that customers can be considered high priority stakeholders is also true. But I think that the most valuable one is helping customers to manage expectations of what we can and cannot do as a service. Okay, for example, when I was young, I worked at a Dairy Queen. And so there was this guy who would come in and he would buy 2 dipped ice cream cones. I'd dip it and I'd hand it to him and he says, no, I want it dipped well. Go dip it again.
Yeah. Technically,
Dipping it a second time, I'm supposed to charge them extra for that. And the first time I said, sir, it's going to be more. And he goes, no, it's not. You guys have always done this for me. So I dipped it again. That guy came in at least once a week to get dipped ice cream cones. And I sat there and I debated, am I being fair to the company? Because anybody else asked for a double dipped ice cream cone, I charged them the extra. But this guy, and like you said, he was aggressive. This is not a guy I wanted to have to argue with. It wasn't worth it. And what's that? I don't want a scene. But it was one of those situations of trying to figure that out. All right, excellent. Okay, so we've got, let's see. Kyle, you're up.
So I think choosing wisely. I'll do number 10 if I can. Did we do 10 already?
We have not.
I said it was D because that was the outcome, but I feel like C and D is like the collective actions that they took. So I said D, but I still think C is a good demonstration.
I'll be honest with you. I think that C is the best one of all of them, because D is going to be an outcome of that. But the truth of it is that the burden of the social contract was, you bought this, it was bad, I'm going to pay to come and pick it up and replace it.
That makes sense.
So I would probably say C is the best burden.
Which I understand, I was kind of torn.
Yeah.
between the two. I didn't.
Yeah. No, I'm going to personally hold that against you, Kyle.
Sorry.
You know.
I'll get it right.
Okay, Winter.
Okay, all mine were taken, so I chose 23. Which of the following are the opposing views of how large publicly held corporations should approach social responsibility and ethics? I said, or I was thinking that A and B would be the opposing views, because large corporations probably shouldn't only focus on environmentalism and they shouldn't only focus on their stakeholders. They kind of have to like balance everything. Like, I mean, they probably shouldn't only focus on their mission either. I don't know. They have to kind of balance everything and keep it all like to a certain level so that they don't destroy one thing or the other.
Okay, good. All right, and Jack.
How about number 13? It says, which of the following describes the efficacy of legislation like the California Transparency in Supply Chains Act? I think the right one is B, that it is effective because it requires disclosure of information about suppliers' working conditions and does not govern those suppliers. It kind of made me think of, speaking of Costco earlier, didn't they, I think they recently quit selling like a coconut milk because they conducted an investigation and discovered that they were using, the company was using forced monkey labor to collect the coconuts.
Okay.
While that's not something that they can govern themselves, they were aware that their customers, if they would have found that out, they probably wouldn't have liked it. So they kind of took it upon themselves to say that they weren't going to deal with that company anymore because they know that their customers wouldn't approve of it.
Okay, so it's the idea that the product itself is not the only thing that people care about. They care about how it was made, where it was made, what happened in the place where it was made, and realizing that people don't just care about the end product. And making it clear how that happens is important. Excellent, thank you. All right, Andrew, you're our last one.
We'll do number 47. How can corporations measure the impact of the CSR initiative?
Okay.
The answer to that is, which we already talked about a little bit, it's the triple bottom line, and it does that by considering the social, economic, and environmental factors in regards to the company and their CSR initiative.
Perfect. All right, excellent. Thanks, everybody. All right, let me write that down. So we had Sam, we had Kyle, we have Winter, we have Andrew. Okay. All right. So we're going to spend about the last 10 minutes of class or so. I'm going to split you guys up into groups so that we can talk about is your privacy being violated if you don't know you're being watched, okay, or if you're unaware. So I'm going to put the people in online into 2 groups. Now, what I want you guys to do with this is you've got 15 minutes left in class. You have the paper due on Sunday. So what I want you guys to decide is you guys can stay for as long as you want to feel like you've got what you need to be able to write your paper, okay? So as soon as you feel like you've got what you need and things like that, if you want to stick around with the conversation, that's fine. This is your time, okay? So I'm going to divide that into 2 groups.
Are you going to do a daily double today or the?
I am. Thank you for reminding me of that. Give me just a second. Let me announce that before I send everybody off. Okay, so there's only 18 of you here today because, well, actually 17 of you because 2 of you weren't here. All right, so we have number 7, we have number 1, and we have number 15. Okay, so Josh is one of them, just because he was, yes, pulling his best Napoleon Dynamite. Let's see, who else got one today? We had, number 7 is Jackson. And number 15 is Winter. Winter already got one, so I'm gonna do another one. Sorry, Winter.
Dang it, I wanted to answer questions.
Should put it towards the next week.
Now, that's gonna require a level of organization that I don't have.
And like write it down somewhere, try not to forget it.
Number 11. Number 11 is Sam. Sam already got it. Good grief, I don't want to spend all our time just trying to do the daily double, but I can't not do it, so 16. This is what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to
You
stay
should
here.
have just gave it to Haley because she remembered about it.
You know what? I'm good. If okay, let's say this. Okay, so we're on. Was it 17?
16.
16? Yeah. All right, Haley, you got it. I'm good with that.
Nice.
I'm good with that too. Thanks.
There we go. All right, so I'm going to split everybody up. So you guys can join your groups, and I will see you all on Tuesday.
All righty. Well,
So let's talk. How do we make a decision? So what is the ethical dilemma in this video?
is your privacy being violated if you don't know it?
Well, that's the title of the video, but what's going on that's asking the question?
Like, is it okay for companies that you like voluntarily give your information to? Is it okay for them to do what they want with it? Is that the problem?
I think the question is if I give them permission, do they really have the right to use the information I've given them how they want? Yeah.
I think it talks a little bit about pretty much that people just kind of accept things without truly realizing it, and companies do it purposely, so they're not giving them the true scope of everything they're doing with their information.
That's the real thing, is the fact that people don't consider the implication of, do you want to allow this app to track your location? Josh, were you the one that was saying every time? No, it was Anthony Personette that said, every time I get a game, any game, it wants access to my location. It wants access to this, right? And we allow it. We don't think about, well, who cares, right? But they're able to use it. So how would I argue either for or against it? Phil, did you have something you wanted to say?
Sometimes it's hard to even buy anything in front of me because all this stuff is just bombarding you because you've been stopped and all of a sudden bombarded with all this stuff.
Okay. I mean, almost every app that we go, or every web page we go to will ask, do you accept cookies? Don't ask me why they chose the word cookies, but it's personal. We're going to collect certain personal data about you that we can then sell or distribute to other people. It's why every single time you go to Amazon, I can guarantee you within 30 seconds, if you go, after you finish going to Amazon, if you go to Facebook, half the ads will be about what you just looked at on Amazon.
So it is selling that information?
They're selling, yes.
I think if you sign up for it, kind of a shitty deal whether you know it or not, but they put it out there.
Because they usually ask you, or they'll tell you, well, we won't bother you. They give you some kind of slogan to get your information, you're like, oh, okay, and then.
I did in one of my comments on the video, I was like, I think it kind of depends on what the information is.
Okay.
Because like my favorite color is a different story from like my address. So I feel like I'm trying to think of an example, but some websites like ask you to sign up for like an email subscription or whatever.
Okay.
And like you can say no and then you can continue. Like I feel like if there was a little bit more like warning or like more information given to the customers when they were filling these things out,
Mhm.
and that they can sell the information, that they can do what they want with it, like, I feel like that would be better than the current, just, are you okay with this, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
I don't believe companies should be doing this, but they have so much non-repudiation because they make sure that they're covering their tracks pretty much because you agree to everything that they're doing to you, you're just not realizing it. And
I have to be honest, I sometimes realize that the end user agreement, called the EUA, or the terms of service, I realize, man, I could be selling my second born child and not realize it. Yeah, well, I like him. I'll keep him around. No, he's actually in class with me today. This is my son, by the way. He wanted to see what dad's doing. But, you know, who knows what we're getting into? Josh?
Oh, that was it. If they're gonna put it in the terms of service, if you decide not to look at it, I think it's real fault for not acting.
I mean, seriously, it's a contract. And I mean, how many of us have just clicked, you don't even look at it. You just know it's going to be there, click, it's set to go on. And you realize what that's allowing you to do. So here's the question. So if I'm going to argue, okay, so for this one, it's not about me and my behavior as a user, it would be my behavior as a business. Is it ethical to collect and use personal data if it's not relevant to my own business activity? Remember, this is what that commercial was about, where if you were to go into a store and they say, okay, well, if I'm going to sell you this product, I need to know these things about you. And you're looking at them going, what the? Why would I tell you where I've been, who I talked to, and what my phone number is? I just want to buy you just want to buy a donut for crying out loud, right? And that was the point they were trying to make. We would never do this in personal life, but we do it digitally all the time.
there's a government hearing with Mark Zuckerberg, but I think Jeff Bezos and a lot of the other CEOs were present in this. But when Mark Zuckerberg got in the meeting, the first question was a senator or legislator, but they asked him, "Did you know where you stayed last night? Where the place stayed at last night?" And then Mark Zuckerberg thought about it for a second, because I don't feel comfortable by looking at information. And the whole point of that was to show this hypocrisy, because that's exactly what Facebook is doing to millions and millions of people, is filming a digital fingerprint that go held in millions of people where they're at.
Hey, Mr. Lambert.
Yeah.
Are we using the template from the last dilemma that we did?
Yes, it's the exact same dilemma, it's the exact same template for the rest of the semester.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. But the thing that Zuckerberg says is, I choose not to share that information, but everybody is willing. I mean, and that was the thing that I love so much, was the person who said, anybody who says that they're concerned because of like a vaccine tracking us, you're carrying around the ultimate eavesdropping device everywhere you go. And we do it willingly because of the services it provides. So as much as we get frustrated about what Zuckerberg is able to do with this data, we also have to remember, number one, we all agree to it, and then we supply it. He's not like leaping into our computers to pull this data. We're the ones that are telling everybody else, hey, I just went to this restaurant. And, or, hey, does anybody have a recommendation of where to go here? Or, I'm uploading this picture, so now I know everybody that you associate with, when you associated with them, where you associated with them. We're providing this information willingly. They're just saying, okay, well, if you're going to give it to us, we'll use it. So we can't hold, I don't know that we can hold them ethically culpable for simply doing what we gave them permission to do. I think we have to hold our own selves. If you don't want it on social media, don't put it there. Right? But if I was a business trying to make this argument, can I help you, Jack? Or are you guys good?
I'm just listening.
Okay. So one of the things I would have to ask is, okay, so do companies have the right to collect and use personal data that is voluntarily given. Not eavesdropping, not malicious software, but I agree to let you have this information. Should I use that? So that's the question I want you to answer. That's how I want you to think of this question. Okay? So if the answer is yes, what ethical standard would you use to support the answer being yes? And if the answer is no, what ethical standard would you use to support the fact that I would not feel good using this information? Even though they gave it to me freely and legally, that's how you need to think or frame this question. Does that make sense? That's probably the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is people, no, two things. First of all, not framing the question very well, but the second and bigger issue that I'm concerned about is forgetting to put in an ethical model. You have to mention, this is the model that says yes, this is the model that would lead me to say no. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I'm sorry, I took over, I apologize.
Where was that rubric that you posted?
It is it's posted in two places.
Yeah, it's in the January 11th through the 17th. No, it's not. It was.
Yeah, it was in the January 25th through 31st. It's also at the very, very top of the class because I kind of figured it might get lost in the weeds during the week, so I put it up at the very top too.
So what was the?
Yes, go for it, Sam.
What was the setup for this question for the assignment?
What do you mean? I'm not sure. I understand.
I'm just making sure that what we're answering is if your privacy could be taken if you don't know it, if that's the setup that we're answering, or if it's
that's just the name of the video.
Okay.
When we were talking in class, what I would suggest is if people willingly and knowingly give you information, is it ethical for companies to use that information? And what ethical model would direct yes or no?
All right.
What's that?
Just repeating, so.
Okay. Does that help, Sam?
Yeah, is the other group still online?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I might post an announcement about that because I have a feeling there's a lot of people that are going to answer because the title of the video asks a question. I think that's what they're going to think the question is, and that's not really it. It's taking us off in a different direction. So I'll thank you for asking that. I'll post that.
So I just have a question. So
Okay.
I'm looking at both sides, like yes and no. And I'm finding ways to argue no, but I'm like trying to think about it from like, yes, it's okay for them to use that information, but I'm looking through like the list of
models,
approaches, and I'm like, I don't really know which one could be used for the yes, other than maybe
Utilitarianism. I would say one of two things. I would say it's either deontology, which is the ethics of responsibility. I am trying to create the best user experience for you. If you search for something on Amazon, it's my responsibility to try to give you ads that, and I don't remember who said this, but if I go to Amazon and I search for X, if I don't want to buy X, they give me a list of what other people have looked at. And a lot of times I'll find, well, I didn't want this, but oh yeah, here's what I wanted. They're their responsibility, their duty is to give me the best experience possible. So tracking that information helps me to do that. Utilitarian is the same thing. If you know what I'm looking for and you make it easier for me to find it, you've increased my efficiency, which is one of the measurements of utility.
It would also be the right approach if you're arguing the company doesn't have the right to do that because you gave them permission to.
You've given them ownership of your information. They have the right to do what they want to with it. Yep. Excellent. Okay, unless anybody has anything, yes, Kyle.
Personal, can I talk to you after class?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Unless anything else, I'm going to log out. So everybody have a